Oh, so what in the world am I going to talk about today? Well, it is International Women's Day, and the day we celebrate achievements of women. And I've got to say, one of my greatest achievements was when I built my own house out of recycled lumber. Now, if you've been coming here for a while, you've probably heard this, but hopefully it'll be a different spin on it. Hopefully it will. My degree is in psychology, and I started my career working in a mental health center as a research assistant, and I also was a counselor. And then one day, I decided to do something else. So I called Goodwill, and I said, "The door's open. A bunch of stuff in there for you. Come get it." And I left my TV. I left all my polyester suits. I left everything that was not a la naturel Donna, because I had a deep desire to know the authentic me. The me that God created, not the me that society told me I had to be. Bought some land out in the middle of nowhere, west of Tennessee. Beautiful creek, beautiful piece of property. And I hung out there a little while, and then I decided, well, I need money. So I went back to work in the mental health department for the state of Tennessee as a statistician. Oh, Lord, I'm telling you. And I decided I'd get my master's degree in statistics. Now, you can take one look in my office and know that the statistical probability of my getting a master's in statistics was nil. Absolutely nil. So, I had a husband named Joel, and we had this land, and we decided one of these days we're going to put a house on this land. Well, it just so happened that Joel's father was a Church of Christ minister down in Georgia, and that little church was going to build a new building, which meant the old building had to go. So his dad said, well, we're putting it up for bid for demolition, and if you bid $51.01, you'll probably get it. And we did. We got it. Our dear friends, Shirley and Joseph, went with us. And I got to tell you this, on the spur of the moment, we decided we'd go from Nashville down to Georgia to take a look at this property. And this is just an aside. We just got up, got in the car, and took off. And we went through Pulaski, Tennessee. And right there in the park was a big cross burning and a Ku Klux Klan meeting. I've seen it with my own eyes. That's an aside. So we go down there and we say, yeah, we're going to do this. And sure enough, this time I quit my job. And we went to Georgia and we camped out inside this church while we systematically dismantled it. Now, it had all this shingles stuff on the outside, so I had to rip all that off. And this was hurricane construction. Nowadays, you get a lot of this pressed board, new construction. Hurricane construction consists of diagonal planks, big, thick, solid wood planks. And we dismantled this church, and my job was to clean all the nails off of it. I'm great with a Wonder Bar. So once we got the outside off, it was time to demolish the inside. So inside, it was tongue and groove wooden floors, tongue and groove wooden walls, tongue and groove ceiling. Yes, wow. It was so much tongue and groove that if the piece of wood, if it wasn't even 5 feet long, we didn't bother with it. It just got tossed. Now, this is how the Spirit works. This was in Georgia. Our property was way back in the woods in Tennessee. It just so happens that I had a brother-in-law who owned a big semi-truck. Was a truck driver. So, for the price of gas, he made 2 trips down to Georgia, loaded that semi with all the wood, and brought it back to our property. Now, our good friend who lived in the property adjacent had a barn. We just stored all of that wood in the barn. And then we went to work. I read a book called From the Ground Up, and it told me how to design a house. And I did it on graph paper, just plain old graph paper. This wall, this long, this wall, this. And you think, for somebody who didn't know what they were doing, that I would have just a box, right? No. I had an 18-foot bay wall, shed ceiling, bedroom loft, stained glass windows, because I knew how to do that too. And I made, with a generator, the stained glass windows for this house. Oh, and I want to tell you about the winter that I'll never forget. You know, we're still in winter. Doesn't feel like it because we're here in Arizona, but we're still in winter. Well, this morning it kind of felt like it a little bit. So Joel and I didn't have any money. We didn't have a trust fund. We didn't have a savings account. All we had was a dream. I had a friend who had a Volkswagen bus that she no longer drove. And so she gave it to us, and we parked it on the property and slept in the back of it. And I remember it was Halloween. And we had been over to some neighbor's house, and we came back, and it was so cold, there was definitely frost on the pumpkin. And we crawled into the back of that Volkswagen bus, and I remember thinking, this has got to cease. So what we did, at this point, we had the walls up, the roof on, and the windows in. The outside of the house was tar paper, just tar paper. Inside, I laid a corner of the tongue and groove wood, enough to put this big wood stove on the corner so we could begin to have some heat inside the house. And then the insulation went up between the studs, and then the pictures went on the studs because there's no place like home. We didn't have any walls, just the studs and the insulation. All right, fast forward this winter. We went to the laundromat all the time because we didn't have any running water. We didn't have any electricity. We bathed in the creek. I would go down 2 big 5-gallon buckets, fill up, come back up the bank. I had a Coleman stove and an enamel baby bathtub, one of those old baby bathtubs. I would put the bathtub on both burners, pump it up, get hot water, wash my dishes and my armpits, and then I'd use the water, the other bucket of water, to rinse it out. But our clothes, we went to the laundromat. So I remember going to the laundromat one night, and when we came out to go back home, it was snowing and sleeting. Now, the way you got to this property, you go down this gravel road, you go around the bend, and then there's a steep hill that takes you to the creek. And you have to drive through the creek and around the bend and up a little hill to where we were building our house. So it was snowing and sleeting, and we knew we better not go down this hill. So we parked our truck. He had a big garbage bag of wet clothes because we didn't pay to dry them. We just hung them around the wood stove somewhere in the house. And I had one. And that year I had gotten into crocheting, right? Crocheting. And I didn't know when to quit. I made us scarves that were 5, 6 feet long, I don't know. Fortunately, we'd wrap them round and round and round our head and our neck, and they would still hang down to the knees. So we started walking down this slippery hill, through the creek, around the bend, and up to our house. And the first thing we did was build a fire, right? When I got there, I was having difficulty breathing. My fingers were numb. my toes were numb. And it took me about a half an hour to begin to thaw out. The next day I learned it was 8 below zero in the hollow. This just goes to show you that even when you put yourself in harm's way, divine protection is there. And even when you don't know you've put yourself in harm's way, the grace of God is with you. So, I tell you about this particular winter because we all have seasons in our lives. I have learned that spring is the most joyful, summer is the most fun, fall brings on the most gratitude, and winter is a time to turn within and to prepare yourself for the coming spring. I look back on those years, I can't believe I did that. I was so young and inexperienced, I didn't have a clue about the magnitude of what we were doing. Oh, it's a 2-story house too, did I tell you that? Yeah, 2-story house. I didn't have a clue. And it just goes to show you how when the voice speaks to you and says, put down your stuff and do this, that when we say yes, we are so blessed. That house still stands. A couple of years back, Joel died. Joel didn't live there. He'd moved to Alabama. But I said, I've got to go back for this celebration of life service. So I went back. And I could not go back without going to see the house. So I did. I remembered how to get there. I went down, walked right up, knocked on the door, and this woman kind of reminded me of me. She came and she says, may I help you? She's probably thinking, how'd you know this house was here, And I said, yes, I'm Donna Johnson. She goes, oh! Boy, the stories and the rumors, I'm telling you, you wouldn't believe it. She said, I was told that this house was built from a church. And I said, that's correct. And these stained glass windows were part of the church. And I went, no. I designed and built them and installed them myself using a generator. So we talked, and I really liked her. And I said, I will send you some pictures. And she said, I'm going to frame them and hang them on the wall. And I said, well, that would be sweet. But I've got to tell you, my soul is in that property. And it took me a month to stop grieving that house. It took me a month. I couldn't be happier that these people live there. And at the same time, it was just like my baby. You've got my baby. My baby's all grown up. And I remember when I left, and I said my goodbyes to my house, and I said, I'll have this again someday. Not meaning that house. And I haven't really. But I have had so many good experiences that had I not left, I'd still be sitting there. And my life would not have unfolded at all. This is long before I'd ever even heard of Unity. I can remember sitting on the deck one day and I had nothing to do. And I watched this little blue-tailed lizard just along. And I told myself, wow, this is a sacred moment. Right here. Just the bees, the blue-tailed lizard, and me. And that was the beginning of my mindfulness practice. So, I say all this to share with you some of life's lessons that I learned going through this experience. And this quote is one of my favorites. And the first time I read it, it just brought tears to my eyes. Because I thought, that's it. This quote is by Henry David Thoreau. I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essentials of life and see if I could learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. That is precisely why I went to the woods. And I'm a double Taurus after all. You know, very earthy. Okay. Now, this is from something I did years ago. I learned some essential things living in the woods and living in that winter. It is the winters of life that teach us what we are capable of. Those situations that seem cold and hard and barren and unfruitful, that still somehow must be endured, teach us patience, teach us resourcefulness, and they teach us gratitude. I learned that there is a profound stillness, a healing stillness that underneath everything lies. And I learned that we can't do it alone, that in order to make our dreams come true, we have to enroll others, and in turn, we give back to others to help make their dreams come true. Our friends would come out on the weekend, bring their tools, they would take their vacations, and we would all sit around the campfire, and I was a vegetarian, cast iron skillet, cooked potatoes, carrots, whatever, and then we would play music because there were a bunch of musicians. I learned that next to air, water is our most precious resource, and clean water is best of all. And I learned that it is okay to live a life that doesn't make sense to other people. I'm sure my family thought I'd gone off the deep end, and given their parameters, I had. But for me, it was a profound experience. I just had a dream, I had land, and I had hammers. I didn't even have a building permit. Didn't know I needed one. I had hammers, nails, and some wood. Bada bing. And there were times when I didn't know where the resources were coming from. Where was the siding going to come from? We didn't have that. We didn't have a lot of other things. We didn't have any money. We didn't have a trust fund. I said all that. This was just two crazy kids out there doing it. But every single time, whatever we needed came around. Not once did it ever occur to me that the house wouldn't get built. And not once did it ever occur to me that the house wouldn't get built by me. And when it came to a standstill at a time or two, I just stood there. Okay, we'll see what happens next. Where's it going to come from? There was never any doubt in my mind that it would not come. And one of my favorite scriptures is, unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. It's the house built by faith. There are many ways that our creativity calls us, and there is no better time to get in touch with our creativity than the winters of our life. Those times it seems you can't do anything, what you can do is prepare your consciousness. Prepare your consciousness for your dreams to come true, and we're never too old to dream. To prepare our consciousness and set our intention to step forth into the manifestation that we desire when the spring